Bitcoin and energy go together like two peas in a pod.
Everybody knows that, Dad.
Yeah, well, did you know that a 12 gauge shoots very violently? What's up, everyone? Welcome to another week of Big Digital Energy. We are here today with Mark and Kirk, and we were missing Chuck. Prostate injury must
Did you hear
be-
about his accident?
And not Chuck is sitting in Chuck's chair. So
Yeah.
Not Chuck.
Not Chuck. We should have got you a shirt. Not Chuck.
I don't know if Chuck's going to be allowed back in that chair, Mark. You do a good job.
I have to step up for Chuck here a little bit. He tweeted out a gondola picture from Telluride, and he was catching a lot of. He was getting ripped for it. Hey man, the skiing's above. You're going the wrong way. That is one of the most beautiful scenes in the lower 48, in my opinion, especially at night. If you've ever ridden over from Mountain Village to the town of Telluride, it's just awesome. So
Yeah, he
he was catching a lot of.
I don't know. I think he's kind of made a sin of missing 2 shows
I know.
in a row.
Let me tell you about a
We have to
scene.
discuss his commitment to the show.
Telluride's a good scene, but the scene I saw last night, I was at the rodeo wine tasting extravaganza shit show. It was amazing. What people wore, how drunk everyone was, but it was a fun event. It's
Is everyone wearing cowboy boots and cowboy hats?
You know, I have cowboy boots. I've had them for a long, long time, but my son has them and he won't give them back. So I had to wear some New York boots.
Attaboy.
They're like, they zip
The
up
only
on the
beef
side.
at the Houston Rodeo is there's a lot of people LARPing as cowboys there. Like, never wear cowboy boots and cowboy hats, and all of a sudden the rodeo.
That is
thinks it's
true. No, but you have to know going in, that's exactly what you're going to see.
time. Yeah.
And the cool people have, like, because it's a wine tasting. I was just holding my wine glass, but if you know what you're doing, you bring like Snoop Dogg chains and they hold your wine glass and they just sits on your chest.
Is that the thing?
I guess. I just want to give a shout out to my boy Brian Cutter, who invited me. And Brian's at Carnwright, and who Carnwright just got part of Alvarez and Marsal, which are good guys. I mean, they're one of the top consultants in the energy
So
space.
Brian Cutter's the one that
Brian's my guy.
he got you in.
And he's
into
helped me
this.
before. So he's
Yeah.
hooked me up when I was starting one of my companies in the blockchain space. Carnwright was, I was a client. So I can speak highly of Brian and their team over there.
Yeah, he was telling me about all the food and wine that they had. So I think everything at the Houston Rodeo is probably a shit show. You know, I've been to the cook-off tents.
I was at another milestone event that maybe not quite as upmarket. We resurrected our Daytona 500 party. It's the Great American Race Day. So
This is Mark's redneck festivities.
This is awesome.
a lot of burying ATVs in the marsh. And
yeah.
pulled pork and
It's the
Budweiser.
redneck adventures. So sounds like y'all had a more fun weekend than me. I just had kids soccer games, so nothing too exciting. But saw some news. I saw a lot of talk around Devon Energy last week. Mark, what was happening in oil and gas markets? You want to get us caught up on that?
Well, a pretty weak backdrop last week for earnings, and those that reported relative to or related to the DOE report, which reported a huge crude and product build really across the board. Now, embedded in all of that was, I think, the largest ever adjustment to the crude to balance, or the adjustment factor number. So it brings up some issues around data quality and data reliability, if you will. But the bills were counter-seasonally large, and we're still in key products still trending pretty low relative to the 5-year average. So I think physically we're still on solid ground, but there's a lot of royal in the market. So Devon reported pretty weak results for Q4, again, across the board. And probably more importantly, reported that 2023 guide was weaker on the production front with heavier CapEx, which I think, you kind of misfire in that message in this environment. It's going to get you smacked, which did happen in the stock. In fact, all the major ETF indices for energy with the XLE, XOP, and the OIHs were down 3.5 to 4.5% on Friday alone.
Yeah.
They're still treading water in the case of the XOP for the year. It's slightly up. The XLE is modestly up, and I think around 3.5%. The OIH, or oil service, has been leading the way at roughly 7% year to date, even after Friday's downdraft. But if you look over at the triple Qs, we've seen tech jump out to a pretty strong start. I think the triple Qs are up just under 14% year to date, so has already lapped energy.
So do you think,
so to speak,
the super cycle didn't seem to be too super if oil and gas is already getting hammered and you're starting to?
Well,
see tech come
I've picked
back?
up
What do you think?
anecdotally that the large institutional money, we talked about it right before the show, that energy is still 10% of the earnings power of the S&P and still only around 5% of the weighting. And so anecdotally, I've picked up that the bigger institutions are hanging around the hoop, right? So there's not a big shift or reversal in fundamental sentiment, and this was a fairly significant cross section regionally for the larger institutions. So you just gotta be nimble if you're going to try and trade this stuff.
Have you? So just do not get excited about buying oil and gas equities and stocks, because it just seems like a constant beating, no matter what's happening. So yeah, I saw a lot of people talking about that. I saw a lot of people talking about Transocean, which Transocean looks like it's actually been performing well, which I know I've told y'all before.
BRV's been tweeting quite a bit about Transocean. I actually took a position last summer, and you're never wrong. You're just early.
Yeah,
yes, exactly. No, that's not how it goes.
I mean, I was buying
being early is equivalent to being wrong.
I was buying Transocean back in 2014, and it went from like $35 to $3. So I felt like I was way too early on that one.
It's just another kind of anecdote that was out on Twitter. Dan Pickering was at the Galleria and tweeted that the Fed has a problem. There seems to be no let up in people buying a lot of stuff, and I think the implication is a lot of stuff you don't need at inflated prices, and if you're borrowing to do that, you're paying a lot more to borrow.
Yeah,
and so something's wrong here.
Yeah,
I think until we get some type of significant pattern of weakness, or just look at what tech has done. You're not buying the cheapest valuation.
Yeah,
you're buying a lot of growth, and you're buying a lot of very full valuation.
Yeah,
right. So
not to hard switch on you here, but just thinking about things that I saw on Twitter that really dominated the feeds this week were this train wreck in Palestine, Ohio. Seen videos of this train derailment carrying some chemicals. I don't know what chemicals it had on board. I don't know if anyone does, but
really bad chemicals.
Well, the main one of concern was vinyl chloride.
Okay,
and they did apparently a controlled burn, and there's actually a pretty good sober piece that goes through rail car by rail car out there that Doomberg put out last weekend on what was in each car. And he also talked about the dilution effect that's pretty immediate. It's not linear, it's cubic, I believe. Now, people that were in proximity to the accident and are directly exposed and are evacuated, they've got a lot to deal with, and the hazards were real. But I think the kind of the nexus of the whole piece was, media was running with it as a Chernobyl type of thing.
Right.
And I guess the physical and chemical reality is it's, as bad as it looks, and as bad as it is for people who are right there exposed to it, it's not, it's not something that's going to propagate over
Yeah.
an extensive area.
I saw a lot of videos, people taking like sticks and running it through a riverbed.
Right.
And then
All
you
the-
had, like oil sheens come
Yeah,
up.
Right.
That's right.
Things like that.
No, I mean, there's some accountability here and probably a lot of litigation risk for the parties directly involved.
Well,
now-
I think the biggest news that to me coming out of Twitter and watching the other news sources is that the local community just didn't have good information. It was
Right.
it hasn't been handled very well.
Yeah.
And that when your government or those that you pay money to help protect you, when you're not getting information, then people start talking.
Yeah.
And usually they go to the worst scenario, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, they're going to create their own narrative, right? I think it's interesting how many people are watching train wrecks now because like, oh, another train wreck. And the reality is there's a lot of train wrecks, a lot of train derailments in the United States. I think
Why,
it's something
though?
like 1,500.
Why there's so many damn train wrecks. I was in London and I went on a holiday during the weekend. I was like, I'm going to go up to Scotland, go see the where they make that great whiskey. And I took a overnight train, and I could not sleep because I was thinking about being derailed the whole time. Now that I know that derailings happen all the time,
I think Europe's better at trains than we are in the United States. So, but it leads to this point that we talk about all the time that pipelines are extremely safe when compared to hauling by train. I mean, you have derailments all the time. And so people are just now paying attention to them and posting them. But
are you saying this is a sabotage to get for the pipeline community?
I'm not saying it's a sabotage. Kirk's always trying to take the conspiracy route.
Most of crude and product does travel by pipeline in the lower 48 or in the U.S. and anywhere from 88 to 92%, I think, is the range. And on 3.4 billion barrels of product and crude that moved in 2021, total pipeline related spills were 43,000 barrels, or about 0.0001%. So
it's a rounding error. I mean,
That's
that's
pretty good.
percent.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's not fractional. That's percent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's already multiplied by 100.
Yeah. You remember that pipeline leak that was in Kansas like 1 or 2 months ago? People are posting pictures about it. I'm like, it's not even that bad. Like it just sprayed up on the hillside, and they go and interview these residents in the small Kansas town. And I mean, these are like old country folks. Like one guy's like, yep, happens. How else are you going to get oil around? Like it's necessary. And then another person's like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. And I was like, finally, some like just based people that were like,
Dude, I grew up on the best beach in the world, Galveston, Texas. And back in those days, we had to bring lighter fluid. You know why we needed lighter fluid?
why?
Run the tar balls.
Because there's so much oil spills, you'd get out of the water with tar all over your body.
Just burn it
And
off.
lighter fluid's the only way to get it off.
Oh, you'd cut it off with the lighter
Now,
fluid. Yeah.
I mean, the downside of oil spills is I was born with 10 toes. Now I have 12. But I mean, that's just the way it is.
that makes you very dynamic now.
No, I think I'm faster in the water.
So I have an anecdote about train travel and kind of the state of things out there in the rail network. Back in the day when I was working out of New York as an analyst, we would take day trips to visit clients down in the mid-Atlantic, and that was an Acela trip. I remember one summer where the schedule just completely blew up and was thrown into chaos because the temperature got so hot during the day that they were worried about derailments related to thermal expansion of the steel and the rail. So
metal
that's
shrinks
kind of
and
the
grows.
micro stuff that goes on. And some of the pictures that have popped up around this story about, how poor the state of some of the rail system is, it probably picked the worst, but some of these things look like the S curve for miles. And so the notion that you have got a lot of derailments that people aren't really aware of is not all that shocking because of the, I think the natural risk that's embedded in rail transportation.
I mean, if we keep talking about this, we're walking right into Elon Musk's whole plan of getting us onto his pipeline for transportation idea.
We should
Remember,
just be.
he put us in a pipe. He says faster that way.
You never played Mario, dog? Like you just
I
get on
mean,
the pipes. And
his vision is
transport.
actually, he was onto something. It's actually a great idea. Now
I
that you
always
think about it.
My granddad used to take me and like we'd get railroad ties, collect railroad ties. They have numbers on them, and we'd try to find 1 through 100. Think about that now. I'm like, we're just out there pulling up railroad ties, probably
Probably not a
destroying
good
these
idea.
things. Yeah. I don't know if any railroads trains have derailed in Midland, Texas. So.
Have you ever inadvertently gotten stuck on a rail car and had to travel on it for a while?
How do you inadvertently get stuck on one? I don't think you can.
I've gotten stuck
inadvertently-
on an airplane.
I've
It's
gotten
pretty
stuck on a
miserable.
hopper car where they haul grain into places
Yeah.
like South Texas. Used to work for
Did you
grain.
get on it while it
Oh,
was
yeah.
moving?
That's what I was
Great.
thinking.
No,
I
Was
know
it
what you're
moving or
doing.
not moving?
Grain
Did you have a
inspection
handkerchief
service.
on the back of like a wooden
Yeah.
stick?
Yeah, exactly. No, man, it's a rough ride up there. There's nothing smooth and stable about it.
Yeah.
It rocks and rolls quite a bit.
My daughter, she was hilarious. My dad always told me, he's like, you can never be overdressed. And I finally was trying to pass some wisdom down to my oldest daughter. I said, Ellie, you can never be overdressed. And she goes, what about a hobo convention? I was like, wow, that was quick.
Yeah.
But let me switch gears for a second. So we're talking about Devon. I want to go to something like Abu Dhabi is selling 4% of its natural gas business in an IPO. What do you think about this? Like, part of the subline is they're trying to raise $2 billion in order to ramp up plans to supply Europe. But we saw Aramco go public. What's your read of sort of the Middle East and their need for cash from public shares? What do you think?
Well, this is gas specific, right?
Yes, it is.
So, there's I think a larger theme or trend, and some of it's related to what we just went through in terms of having to urgently find cargoes to get into Europe. For example, China's been out there, I think 15% of contracts lately have been cut by China. I think it's Abu Dhabi's recognition that there's going to be a longer term game to play, and they need capital to scale up into that game. We still our mood swing with Henry Hub, which is currently at about 2.25 last look.
Yeah.
So, nobody wants to touch new investment.
No.
But longer term, I think
As we're
certainly
talking
through
about
the
train
second half,
derailments,
second half of this decade,
no one wants to do any new investments.
second half of
It
this
wasn't
decade,
lost on me on that.
Abu Dhabi's obviously looking out structurally longer term. And I think Shell was out, your old competitors were out, quite divergent from the IEA at what LNG demand is going to do kind of post 2026, and big gap there. And they were much more optimistic and aggressive. And
Well, they're
much larger
the most
numbers.
long LNG. And while, as even said, he's pulled back some of the rhetoric around renewables and said, we're kind of doubling down on LNG.
the U.S. has every opportunity practically and from a resource potential standpoint to play that game and lead that game
could.
that I think Abu Dhabi's indicating by,
Raising
trying to raise capital around.
The UAE's doing the same.
Look, we want to fill the gap quickly, and we're going to pick off some rents here. They see a structural issue. India's got 1.4 billion people.
We still need to get your
Speaking-
boy Rice on the show to talk about his LNG rant. I'd love to hear that as a rant and post that clip.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we should get Toby on here. I saw this funny tweet about Shell. You want to hear it? This guy's a doofus. I think he's the biggest doofus on Twitter. I don't even like his profile picture. Like his profile picture just,
Are we going to list it? We're going to put it on.
Mine's my dog.
yeah. Like this guy just looks like he looks like he's lost. He doesn't even look like he knows what's going on, but he made this tweet. And he said, if you made, all right. Oh, I just lost it. Hold on. Oh, geez, what happened to it? Hold on. Give me 2 seconds here. This is worth waiting for. I'm having to search on Twitter, Shell Jesus. Okay, I made it. He said, if you made $53,000 a day or $20 million per year since Jesus was born, you would still not make the profit that Shell made in 2022. It's time for Shell to stop drilling and start paying for the climate damage they've caused. Found a very unique base measurement of since the day Jesus was born. That's how we're basing companies off of.
Did you reply?
Yeah, I did. I retweeted it, but then I deleted it really quick because I'm trying to not bully people on the internet, and it's not going well. But
have you ever hooked up, not in a sexual way, of course. I mean, have you ever met somebody through, like, if they DM'd you on Twitter? Like, this one guy reached out saying, "Hey, let's play golf together." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, of course, let's do it."
Yeah, dude. No, most of my friends are from Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram. Most people.
I was like, I don't know what your profile picture, that's not you. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the difference between like my generation and y'all's. Like, all of our friends came from the internet.
Don't put me in the same generation as Mark and Chuck.
Easy.
So, yeah.
You didn't mention Snapchat. That seems to be really popular among high school.
I've actually never had
students.
I've never
I had Snapchat for like one day until my wife said it was creepy and get off of it. So
Who said that?
My wife. I was like, I thought maybe it was.
No.
Well,
my wife said the same thing. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm not having Snapchat. So I've never known what Snapchat was about. So last story.
Unless you started Snapchat, then it's a great idea. But
yeah,
just don't be on it.
Just don't be using it. Last story that we got some shit going down in Mexico with lithium. Mark, what's going down?
It's a good story.
Late last week, after nationalizing the country's lithium resources in April of last year, last week, AMLO, Andres Miguel Lopez Obrador, the president of Mexico, signed a decree late last week authorizing the energy ministry to have jurisdiction over Mexico's sovereign lithium resources and the development of them. They also, at the ceremony, designated a 907 square mile area. I'm not sure in lithium terms if that's a lot, in Sonora. It's known as LI-MX1 mining zone. Estimates are out there around 1.7 million tons with two ends of lithium for the country. And we'll see how this goes in terms of pace of development, but certainly the opportunity for the tech world and the Teslas of the world to diversify lithium sources away from China and the Democratic Republic of Congo, certainly offers some type of strategic alternative. Now, the question is, what does that timeline and trajectory of development look like? In Mexico, we've seen a long history ever since the original nationalization of oil and gas and what the energy ministry has been able to do or not do through state-owned companies like Pemex, and has gone through fits and starts over the course of the decades. So
I'm looking at, I was searching for the size of the biggest mines, but they don't judge them by square miles. It's by
how much they pull out.
Yeah. So actually it says that the biggest mine in the world is in Sonora lithium project.
Well, I mean, look, I think, Mark, you're right. I mean, we don't see massive investment in technology development when it comes to Mexico when you look at their oil and gas business. However, this could be a great opportunity for the cartels to go legit. If the cartels ran the lithium mines, I'm sure they get those things up and running quickly.
Imagine they touch it somehow, regardless.
Oh, it's in Sonora.
They touch the avocado business, so
yeah,
that's legit.
Oh, I'm sure they're involved in this.
Tequila and everything else. You're gonna have the next.
You heard it here. I think cartels go legit.
I think the larger
on
point
BDE
is, all these strategic minerals and metals. What are we going to do in the West about truly reducing supply chain risk, diversifying away from providers that have less than savory practices, either from an environmental or human rights standpoint? And I saw something last week, and I think it's along the same lines as Europe, is starting to look back towards Sweden, which apparently is got a lot of prospectivity for lithium as well. So, we'll see how this all plays out. I think in response to the multiples that various forecasters have put out there, if we're going to meet all of this demand that's implied by things like EVs and, the multiples that we're going to have to grow key minerals and mining, how do we diversify away from a supply chain that's effectively 80% controlled by places like China in the Congo?
Look, I rode the wave when I was working for a big tech entrepreneur where we decided to not even own any inventory. We would make our suppliers keep inventory right on the edge of our manufacturing plants, and we would just grab it when we needed it. I was talking to a large industrial developer over the weekend. He's telling me that now inventories, like warehousing, is a big business. In the Houston area, you've never lost any money on warehousing. It's just a matter of time, but you've always made money. But right now, these businesses are actually keeping a lot of inventory, and it's moving from like just in time, 3 days, 6 months inventory. We should get Mush Khan on here because he has a great theory, and I agree with it.
He's coming on this Friday.
Is he? Good.
You gonna come co-host that podcast with me?
About about the idea of gone are the days where you single source. We should never single source, by the way, ever. But for example, the car that I drive, which happens to be electric because I care about the environment, unlike you guys, the electrical systems are made in only one place in the world for my car. You want to guess where?
Germany.
It's a country that Russia has invaded and they're in a war in. It's Ukraine. So it's like, well, whose idea was it to set up a plant in the Ukraine to make electrical systems?
Yeah.
Well, of course it was done before they knew about the war. But I think today, according to Mush, and we should square him his, is that minus transportation costs and time, it's cheaper or are equivalent to manufacture locally. And I actually agree with that.
Yeah.
We grow our own food locally. It's better for you, supposedly. Why do you have honey?
I think when you actually account for everything,
like you got to count everything.
You bake in risk like that, war breaking out in Ukraine. I mean, on a cost adjusted basis, it has to be the same cost to manufacture over here in North America.
Yeah, and Flextronics is building a giant plant in Mexico. So, I mean, I see.
I mean, a lot of aerospace industry is manufactured down in Mexico, and they've Barrel Energy Solutions. I'll give them a plug here, but they've got they're the biggest manufacturer of tricone roller drill bits. Make all of, I think, like Baker Hughes. I don't want to say the companies. I'll probably get them wrong, but anyways, the biggest manufacturer, and I mean, they employ 1,000 people down in Mexico at a facility to make those, and so you have a ton of manufacturing talent down there. Much rather manufacture in Mexico than China.
Yeah, I guess these moves are encouraging in that I think you have to look at the entire inventory situation across the supply chain, starting with the raw materials, right? And we're going to have to dig up some of that stuff in the West,
right,
to create both the stability and the better economics, but also it's just the right thing to do because the practices are cleaner across the board. I mean, we've seen it in oil and gas. Why are we?
Absolutely.
Mike Umbro talks a lot about California seems willing to trade cleaner domestic production specifically in California for barrels from Ecuador that come from the rainforest.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah. I think
it's the same.
So in the show, finger of the week, I didn't put any thought into this one. So who wants to take finger of the week this week? Does anyone have a good one? Mark, I know you had something teed up.
I mean, I have one, but I want to give Mark his last time in Chuck's chair as king. I like your finger of the week. I think it's the right message.
All right. What is it?
Because it's somber, but it's true.
Yeah, I think it's and it probably had something to do with the last main body story being about Mexico and the potential of imports, it's really, I think it's time to give the finger of the week to fentanyl. And the Chinese manufacturers, the cartel smugglers that are wreaking havoc ultimately in the U.S., where, the drug is killing, in most of it in shocking situations. Tens of thousands of Americans and a lot of teenagers.
The crazy thing about
Every
fentanyl
year.
is like you'll have people that do, like recreational coke, and then boom, they just die. And it's not like these people are like, hardcore druggies and drug users, and it's just drugs being laced, recreational drugs being laced.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty scary.
So I know of a situation, this is a long time ago, and you didn't even think about it then, but 3 days after high school graduation a few years ago, someone we knew directly was at a festival, just celebrating life and moving on to the next stage, and got a tainted tablet and was dead. So
It's terrible.
yeah, and that's compounded so much over
Yeah.
the last few years with the increased flow across the border and the more creative ways of contaminating street drugs like meth and everything else that you can make look colorful and inviting and legit.
Absolutely.
So
I have my mom and all the other boomers on Facebook are like, watch your kids' candy at Halloween. They're putting fentanyl lace candy. I'm like, guys, y'all been saying that for 30
Well, they
years.
used to put razor blades in our candy. Yeah.
yeah,
No one's
and
trying to
This is
needles.
that's
Needles.
right. And needles.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's trying to kill the kids.
And also watch out for the families that try to give out things like kale and toothbrushes and
Kale is a superfood. Everyone loves it except me.
Not on
So I don't know. I don't care.
not on Halloween.
loves it but me.
But I do drive an EV, so I'm.
Yeah,
is that
that's it.
am I sort of?
Yeah, you're kind of you're net
neutral?
out. You're net out. Yeah.
I'm net out. All right, good. Don't eat kale, but I drive an EV.
Yeah.
I'm net neutral.
Anyway, so fentanyl was high time to be the recipient of the finger of the week.
Yeah, I'm out of finger of the week. This year's just been kind of peaceful for me.
That's
Just been-
exactly my story too. I'm actually living with joy right now.
Yeah. I don't like it. Like
You want to have a finger. You want to
Yeah.
have fingers.
I mean,
If
that's
there's
what,
angst and chaos, there's problems to solve.
yeah, that's what I like. Is like I like punking on people on Twitter and everything, but I'm just like, this isn't a good use of my time. So I've been peaceful.
you'll get out of it. We'll get you out of it.
Yeah,
Something is going to get you out of
something
it
will come along with the. I have a finger of the week for
as
it,
we
so.
get closer to empowerment.
Well, let's,
Yeah.
in honor of Chuck, this was probably the best show we've ever done.
The ones without Chuck have been bangers.
Yeah, that's right.
But Chuck's still supporting us. He's
He's Chuck.
retweeting.
I
He's
mean-
retweeting the show and pumping it up. So next week though, Chuck will be back.
I'll
Tuesday
get out of
morning.
your chair before then.
Tuesday
Chuck.
morning, Mark will move back to his normal chair. We will catch you guys next week.